Hi friends, I'm Chelsea Grayson coming to you once again from the Office of the CEO. This is my show where I can help you be more successful in your current career, and I can also help you successfully transition to a new career. And along those lines, today I want to start talking to you about transferable skills. These are the skills that I think everyone needs in order to affect any sort of healthy career transition, whether you're planning a career transition in the future or whether you're forced to do it because of circumstances outside of your control. This is clearly a huge topic, so I will be addressing it over several episodes. And what I'll mainly be addressing are what sorts of transferable skills I think apply across the board for all of us to develop and polish. And those include substantive skills as well as the sort of soft factor skills. Sometimes these are skills you can learn on the job. Sometimes these are skills that you'll have to take time out of your personal schedule to learn on your own. So aside from what transferable skills everyone should be developing, I will also be talking about places where you can develop and learn and polish these transferable skills. I am going to be talking to you a bit about how to learn what specific skills that you might need to develop that aren't on my list because you're choosing to transition into a particular position or a particular industry. So how to figure out exactly which skills you need to be working on, particularly for that intended transition. I'll talk to you a little bit about how to rearrange your resume or CV in order to properly display that you have these transferable skills, and then how to talk about those transferable skills once you get into a conversation with the right person, whether it's merely an introductory networking conversation or whether you're actually lucky enough to sit down and be interviewing for a career transition. So that's going to take place over the next few episodes. I really hope you can tune into all of those episodes. And so today I just really wanted to start off with a very basic conversation about the substantive skills that I think we all need to develop and polish along the way in order to be ready for whatever career transition happens to come down the road. Because remember, career transitions can happen in lots of different ways. They don't always look the same. And sometimes they can be voluntary, sometimes they can be anticipated, sometimes they're unexpected, and sometimes, unfortunately, they are involuntary, right? There's something that just happens to hit us and we need to pivot in the moment. So a career transition, again, can be something as simple as you're in a staff position at your current organization and you'd like to, or you're asked to transition into a management or leadership role. That's certainly a career transition. What about if you want to switch into a different business division or unit at your current organization? That's obviously a career transition. Those are very basic transitions. What if you want to switch over completely to a different organization, a different sort of business division? What about a completely different industry? What if you want to go to graduate school and you want to become something completely different from what you're currently doing because you were always intending on going to graduate school at some point? These are all career transitions. And remember, some of these can happen because you've been plotting a course throughout your career path, right? You've always intended to develop your career and make these particular transitions. Sometimes these are opportunities that come knocking at your door that were unanticipated but welcome. For example, as you all know, I was a lawyer. I was ultimately promoted to become a partner at Jones Day, and I really assumed at that point that I was going to retire there at the age of 65 with the gold watch and the vested pension and all of that. But then happily, I was recruited to join American Apparel and ultimately became the CEO of both American Apparel and then True Religion. So I made a happy transition into the business leadership side, into the C-suite side of business. And then now I'm in the third chapter of my career where I am sitting on public company boards for a living. So I've had obviously several transitions that were fortunate and certainly welcome. Not totally unanticipated, but certainly not what I had originally planned when I made partner at Jones Day as a lawyer. And then of course, there's the unfortunate situation where you're forced to make a career transition. The obvious example being the professional athlete, right? Who gets injured and has to stop playing professional sports, but maybe transitions into becoming an anchor on a sports network or something like that, right? or even a situation which is probably more relevant to most of our lives, where the economy takes a turn and there are layoffs at our organization, and so we're laid off. Our organization is forced to file for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy and does mass layoffs. Or our business division gets axed at our organization, but then the organization says, we'd love for you to stay on, but you'd have to work in this other business unit, right? So there's all sorts of things that sometimes are unanticipated and are not particularly fortunate or desired transitions, but we should all be flexible enough to pivot and make those career transitions, and also be the person that is considered as a viable candidate, right? You want to absolutely look as if you are ready for that transition and that you are the absolutely most viable and qualified candidate, even if what they want you to transition into is not exactly what you've currently been doing. So, big topic. Again, today I really want to start simply and just talk to you about what I think are the basic meat and potatoes, fundamental, substantive skills that everyone should be developing and having and polishing. So let's get started. So first, I think everyone should have a sharp financial acumen, right? You should understand the components of a set of traditional financial statements, from balance sheet to P&L statement, right, to a cash flow statement, whatever it is that makes up a traditional set of financial statements in your industry or your organization. Start to understand what each of those financial statements looks like, the different purpose that each one of those statements serves, why one might become more useful in a certain situation or in a certain context. For example, a cash flow statement is obviously going to become incredibly useful if the organization is going through a liquidity crisis, is having trouble with their money, right? And understand what information you can gain from each of those financial statements and how you can then apply it to your analysis of the business and operations of the company. So everyone should have deep financial acumen. You should, along those lines, you should absolutely know how to build a budget, taking all of those factors into consideration, understand the components of a budget, understand when you need to pivot on a budget that you've built and you're halfway through it and there's something that you need to change in the moment in real time. Understand how to report on the performance of a budget after that period of time has already passed where you've implemented the budget. Understand how to glean lessons learned. So after you've had a budget approved, after you've already gone through the fiscal period where you've applied that budget, understand what mistakes were made, what you should have done differently when planning that budget, so that you know how to build a more intelligent budget moving forward. And obviously, at all costs, understand how to present a proposed budget to the board or to your boss or whoever it is that you need to present that to. And again, in future episodes, we'll talk about where are the best places to learn how to hone your financial acumen and how to build a budget. Second substantive area of skills that I think everyone should develop is gain experience in making high stakes presentations. So these are not just where you're taking a one-on-one meeting with your manager or boss on a weekly basis, right? I mean, you might be nervous for that, but that's not a high stakes presentation. That's just part of your ordinary course responsibilities in your job. I'm talking about understand how to make a high stakes presentation to your boss and your boss's boss, right? Where something is really at stake. Understand how to make a boardroom presentation. Understand how to make a presentation to the C-suite. Understand how to make a presentation where something really important is on the line, all eyes are on you, and you are considered to be the expert or the person with the answers in respect of this presentation. I say this for a couple of different reasons. Each sort of high stakes presentation that you're going to make is going to require a different set of documents, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's something you're handing out. Maybe it's nothing because you prefer to speak extemporaneously because you like for people to focus on you and then just be asking active questions, not just focusing on a PowerPoint up on the computer screen or up on the wall. So understand exactly what sort of written presentation is needed or maybe not necessary in that context. Understand what it's like to have all eyes on you. Understand what it's like to have people asking you questions, maybe not at the designated time, so maybe they're not going to wait until the end. Maybe they're asking you questions, they're peppering you with questions throughout the course of your presentation. Understand how it is to answer the question and get back on track and continue to report on the thing that you were asked to report on. Understand what your mission is, and is that consistent with the mission that you were given when you were asked to make the presentation? Understand what it is that you want to walk away with. Are you asking for approval on something? Is this to impress people? Is this to make people remember who you are, right? So it's less about the substance and it's more about, oh, I remember that person and we're gonna think about her for the next time that we need this particular project done. So understanding all of those things and then being able to make cogent remarks, not have your nerves showing. You know, it's always very cute in movies. They show people making presentations and they look nervous and the audience member sort of gives them some leeway. In the real world, that is not attractive. That's not cute. That's not endearing. If you make the audience, if the audience realizes that you're nervous or you're anxious or you're shaky, they will become nervous. They will not be secure in the fact that you know what you're talking about. They will be always nervous, waiting for you to mess up or maybe have a freeze moment. They won't focus on what you're saying. They certainly won't walk away with the impression that you're powerful, that you're centered, that you're a leader, that you understand your subject area. So absolutely shake your nerves out and understand that even if you are nervous, you absolutely have to conceal that fact. Nobody thinks that's impressive to be nervous for a high stakes presentation. So third, and this is sort of related to that second point, public speaking skills, right? Go and do as many public speaking engagements as you can. It doesn't matter how big or small the audience is. In the end, this is outside your workplace context, right? This is for trade organizations. This is, for any organizations that might need content, might need someone to come sit on a panel for them, might need a keynote speaker at their virtual summit. Now, of course, we're in COVID times, everything is virtual. Or at their in-person summit, when we go back to the before times maybe. But understand how to engage in public speaking engagements. Understand how to make those remarks. It's obviously very different from when you're at work, right? Because those are very specific projects. Everyone sort of understands the basis for your remarks. When you're going and educating an audience at a public speaking engagement, it's a very different set of remarks that you'll be making, and the structure is incredibly different. This is a great place, though, to work through the issues of shaking out your nerves and not appearing to be anxious. This is where you can get rid of all your tics that you might have that you don't even realize. This is a great place to have a friend come and sit in the audience and give you really raw, blatant, honest feedback at the end of your speaking engagement so that you can truly polish your public speaking skills. The next one, I firmly believe, and I actually need to work on this myself, that everyone should develop a fundamental basic set of IT or tech skills. We are moving so quickly in terms of rapidly developing IT and tech these days, and it should never be that when the conversation turns to tech in any context that you say, that's not in my wheelhouse, or I'm a little bit too old to understand that, or let's just let the tech people figure that out. Everyone should have a basic tech understanding one way or the other. Next thing, how to hire and fire people. This is something that hopefully as you work your way up through the chain of command at whatever organization you're at, or let's just say you're building your own business, you are going to have to understand how to spot talent, how to attract talent, how to acquire talent, how to develop and promote talent, right? Just for succession planning and for the growth of your organization. And on the other hand, you will absolutely need to understand how to evaluate talent, how to figure out when it's the right time to cut ties with talent, and how to have the conversation or how to have someone else have the conversation about how to terminate that person in the smartest way possible, both from a human perspective, a culture perspective, and from a legal perspective. Who to have in the room, the words to use, how to de-escalate a situation that looks like it's getting out of control, how to prep for those conversations, how not to feel awkward or nervous before those conversations, how to have authority during those conversations, et cetera, et cetera. These are key skills. And for sure, whoever is evaluating you right now in terms of how you're currently doing your gig will be very interested to know whether you can handle hiring and firing people and all of the things that I just talked about. So the next thing, I do think that everyone should understand the basic components of a contract, of a legal agreement, and all of the different sections that normally occur in an agreement. And everyone should understand what each of those provisions means, the terms of art that are normally used in legal agreements or contracts, and how to negotiate those terms and provisions. I'll give you a very brief example because I do intend to do one entire episode on this. You know, there's always this boilerplate section at the end called the general or miscellaneous section at the end of a contract, which has things like governing law and how to terminate the agreement and what the jurisdiction would be if there was a dispute in respect of the agreement, those sorts of things, right? And people will always say to you, well, that's just boilerplate, we always include that language, that doesn't change, it's not negotiable, and so let's just not even bother to look at that. I'm sure many lawyers have looked at that section before and they've vetted the language and there's nothing to see there. Let's look at the other sections of the agreement that talk about things like payment and how long the agreement lasts and what people's obligations are under the agreement. That's a huge mistake. That miscellaneous, that general section at the end, contains all sorts of things that are absolutely negotiable. Everything is negotiable in an agreement, that are not boilerplate. There's frequently mistakes that are in there that have been in there for decades sometimes because people never look at that section. And those can turn really ugly if the parties ever got into a dispute. So you want to understand exactly what's in those provisions. You absolutely always want to negotiate those if you see something there that could possibly come back to bite you in the end. Again, I'm going to do a whole episode on the components of an agreement, but for sure, everyone should take a basic class on how to negotiate a legal agreement. And of course, there's other substantive skills, right, that you might want to develop throughout the course of the years, right? You might want to have a deep understanding of supply chain and operations. You might want to have an understanding of the flow of retail and wholesale, how restructuring works, what are the different components and sides of marketing, right? But for now, I think that's enough for you to think about a little bit in terms of what are the substantive skills that you should be going out there and developing and polishing for yourself to be absolutely primed for whatever opportunity comes down the pike, whether it's something that you're looking for, whether you don't realize people are looking at you for this particular opportunity, whether it's something that you're forced to transition into due to circumstances outside of your control. Be sure and tune in for the next episode. I'll be talking about some of the softer factors, some of the softer skills that I think everyone should develop, as well as where it is you can develop all of these substantive and soft skills, whether it's on the job or whether it's things that you need to do outside of the job. So I do hope you join me for the next episode. Be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss that or other episodes. And I will see you next time from the Office of the CEO.